chapter 113 of Shrimadbhagavatam, the Chandra Vamsha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Out of the navel of Lord Narayana was born Brahma, the creator. Brahma had a son by name Atri. Out of the tears of joy which he once shed was born a son to Atri, and this son was named Soma. He was made of Amrita, and Brahma, the creator, made him the lord of the Oshadis, that is, medicinal herbs, and of the stars. Soma conquered the three worlds and performed the Rajasuya. He was so handsome and so great was his charm that no one could help loving him. In course of time, he became proud and arrogant, and as a result of this, his righteousness was dimmed. Brihaspati, the guru of the Devas, had a beautiful wife by name Tara. Soma took her by force. He was handsome and charming that Tara did not resist him and his love. Brihaspati was extremely fond of his wife. He asked Soma again and again to return his wife, but Soma refused to do so. As a result of this, there was a war in the heavens. Shukra, the guru of the Asuras, had never been fond of Brihaspati, and so, when this incident took place, he took sides with Soma, and naturally, the Asuras sided with Soma. Mahadeva sided with Brihaspati, who was the son of Angirasa. Mahadeva had great respect for Angirasa. He almost considered him to be his guru. There was a reason for it. When Sati, the wife of Mahadeva and daughter of Daksha, abandoned her body during the yajna which Daksha performed, Mahadeva was so full of sorrow that he forgot his real nature. Narayana sent Angirasa to Mahadeva and asked him to comfort the sorrowing god, to remind him as to who he was. Angirasa did this, and so Mahadeva was grateful to the Rishi who had saved him from the extreme sorrow which had threatened to overpower him. Indra with all the Devas took sides with Brihaspati, his guru, and the war was quite intense. It seemed as though both the hosts would be destroyed, all because of the arrogance of Soma. Brahma felt that he should interfere. He went to his grandson, and after scolding him thoroughly, he took Tara with him and restored her to Brihaspati. Brihaspati found that she was with child. He loved her so much that he could not be very angry with her for her lapse. He said, "You are with child, and I do not know whose child it is. Shed the baby from your womb so that I can call myself a father. You are a woman, and I will not curse you. Do not be afraid." The child was born. It was a boy, and it was very beautiful. Brihaspati became very much attached to it, and Soma also. He claimed that the child was his. Both the men were quarreling over it. The rishis and the devas questioned Tara, but she would not reply, overcome as she was with shame. The newborn child began to speak, and he said, "Women, why do you keep silent? You have been unfaithful to your husband, and now you refuse to speak when he wants to know the truth about me. Tell me who I am." Brahma took her aside and asked her in secret who the father of the child was. After a lot of coaxing, she replied in a soft and halting voice that Chandra, that is Soma, was the father. Chandra then took the child with him. Brahma was amazed at the righteousness of the newborn child, who wanted truth at any cost. He was so wise, and so Brahma called him Buddha, the one who knows. Shraddha, the son of Vivasvat, the founder of Surya Vamsha, was childless for a long time. He requested his guru Vashishta to perform yajna in supplication to Mitra and Varuna. His wife, however, wanted a daughter. When the yajna was in progress, she asked the Hota to make her wish to come true. The Hota obliged, and a daughter was born. The king was very disappointed and asked Vashishta how it could happen. The Guru told him about the Hota changing the incantations in order to please the queen who desired a daughter to be born. The girl was called Ila. Vashishta told the king that he would, with the power of his tapas, make the child change sex. The girl became a boy as a consequence of Vashishta's power. The prince was named Sudyumna. Once the prince had gone out hunting in the northern direction. Under the slopes of the Meru mountain nestled a coppice, and when he entered it with his companions, Sudyumna realized that he had become a woman. His horse had changed sex also, and his companions too were in the same plight. This was because of the curse of Lord Mahadeva. Once the rishis came to the forest to worship Mahadeva, who was staying there. He was, as was his custom, accompanied by Parvati. The rishis, in their eagerness to see the Lord, entered his presence without announcing themselves. Parvati was seated on the lap of Mahadeva, and she was not dressed. Seeing the rishis, she was overcome with shyness, and covering herself with her cloth, she left the lap of Mahadeva. The rishis felt embarrassed and went away from there. They went to the ashrama to Nara and Narayana. Lord Mahadeva, to pacify his concert, pronounced a curse saying, "Those who enter this forest will become women." In course of time, no man would enter the forest because of the curse. Vashishta prayed to Mahadeva to help the young prince. The Lord then said that he would be a woman for a month and a man for a month, and so he lived till he gave away his kingdom to his son and went to the forest to perform tapas. When Sudyumna was wandering in the forest in the form of a woman, Buddha, the son of Soma, saw a beautiful woman and fell in love with her. Sudyumna was Ila for that length of time. A son was born to the two, Buddha and Ila. This son was named Pururavas, and he was the first king of the rays of the moon. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Chapter 114 of Shrimadbhagavatam, Pururavas. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Pururavas had inherited the wisdom of his father and the handsomeness and charm of his grandfather Soma. When his father Sudyumna left the kingdom in his hands and went away to the forest, Pururavas began to rule the kingdom well. His fame spread far and wide. Once, in the court of Indra, Narada was speaking about the greatness of Pururavas, about his handsomeness, his nobility and his righteousness. He said that all the great and good qualities of a king were found in him. Hearing the praises of the king, Urvashi, the divine dancer, fell in love with him. When she found herself pinning for the king, she came down to the earth. She went to the presence of Pururavas. He was taken aback at the sight of so much beauty. His eyes were drinking in her beauty, and his voice was soft when he said, "Please be seated. Tell me what I should do to please you." She stood silent, and her eyes spoke volumes. The king felt that he would not be given those looks and loving smiles unless she was also interested in him. He said, "I am enchanted by you. Will you become mine?" Urvashi said, "When such a handsome man like you is standing before me and asking me if I will become his, can I refuse? I do not think there is any woman on this earth or in the heavens who can resist your charm. My mind and my eyes are lost in you. I have come to you with a heart full of love for you. But then, there are two conditions which you have to fulfill if you want me to be yours." The king said, "Command me, my love. I will do anything you say." She said, "These are my pet goats. They must be protected, and again, you must promise me that no harm will come to them. The other condition is, I should never see you without your clothes except when we are making love. If you agree to these, I will be yours. Also, I will eat nothing but ghee." The king agreed to all her conditions, and they became husband and wife. They spent many happy years in the gardens, earthly and heavenly. Kubera's garden, Chaitra, was their favorite haunt. Indra, in the meantime, was finding the heavens lifeless without Urvashi. He decided to get her back. One day, when the king and Urvashi were fast asleep, Gandharvas sent by Indra came and took away the pet goats of Urvashi. They bleated when they were carried away, and the sound woke her up. Urvashi was like one demented. She woke up Puravas and spoke harsh words to him in her grief. She said, "Fool, that I was to have considered you to be a hero. I trusted you to guard my pets, and now they are gone. You are not a man. You are man only when there is light illuminating the world. At nights you sleep like a timid woman, afraid to go out and rescue my goats. I have been deceived." Touched to the quick by her words, the king leaped out of his bed, and grasping the sword in his hand, he rushed out in pursuit of the thieves. He had no garment on. Just then, because of Indra's trickery, the sky was lit up by a brilliant streak of lightning. The Gandharvas left the goats and vanished. But Urvashi had seen the king when he was naked, and she too disappeared. The king came back and found that she had gone. Pururavas found it impossible to live without her. He would wander all over the surface of the earth looking for her. He went to the banks of the Saraswati, and there he found 5 maidens who were the companions of Urvashi. His message to her was, "Do not go away, my beloved. Please stay. You should not treat me so cruelly. I have been made to wander so far because of you. This body of mine, which you once loved, is now going to drop down dead. Hawks and wolves will make a meal of me." Urvashi sent back her reply, "Do not lie. Wolves need not eat you up. Have you not yet realized that women should never be trusted? They have no lasting love for anyone or anything. Their hearts are like those of wolves. They are without any companion. They are cruel, heartless, impatient, and obstinate about their wishes and their gratification. On the slight pretext, they will even kill the brother or lover or husband who trusts them, but leave all that alone. At the end of this year, you will meet me and spend a night with me. You will also get your son then." Pururavas was thrilled that he would meet her again, and that she was with child, that she would give him an heir to the throne. As per her promise, Urvashi spent a night with the king Pururavas, and when she had to go away, he was very unhappy. Urvashi said, "Pray to the Gandharvas, they will bring us together." He performed to the Gandharvas, and they gave him a pot of fire. They said, "Perform the rites. We tell you, with the help of this pot, you will finally reach Urvashi." He buried the pot under the tree, and that night he spent in thoughts of her. That night he dreamt of the 3 Vedas. In the morning he went to the spot where he had buried the pot of fire. He rubbed the pieces of arani as he had been instructed. He found fire being performed. The fire assumed 3 forms to represent the 3 fires presided over by the 3 Vedas: Gurhapatya, Ahavaniya, and Dakshinagni. With this fire, the king worshipped Narayana, asking him to grant him his wish. Pururavas was granted his wish. He reached the abode of the Gandharvas, and there he was united with Urvashi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Chapter 115 of Shrimadbhagavatam, Parushurama. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. In the line of Pururavas was born a king named Gadi. His daughter was Satyavati. Ruchika, a Brahmin, came to the king and asked for the hand of his daughter in marriage. The king said, "If you want her, you must give me 1,000 horses, which are milky white like the moon, and which have ears which are black. If you love my daughter enough, you must be able to pay this Kanya Shulka." We are not usually in the habit of asking for this Shulka, but I want to see how much you love my daughter." Ruchika went to Varuna, the lord of the oceans, and asked him to help him. He came back with 1,000 white horses and claimed the hand of the king's daughter. Gadi was quite satisfied that his daughter would have a loving husband and gave Satyavati to Ruchika. Gadi had no son and Ruchika did not have one either. Gadi's wife and Satyavati asked Ruchika to help them realize their wishes. He agreed to do so. He prepared for them holy water sanctified by incantations. 2 pots held the water. One was meant for the king's wife. Ruchika had asked for a son full of the qualities of a Kshatriya to be born to the women who drank out of that pot. The other pot, which was meant for his wife, contained water which would grant a son with Brahminic qualities. Having placed them in the ashrama, Ruchika went to the river to perform his daily Sandhya rituals. The 2 women came into the ashrama and saw the pots of water meant for them. The queen, Gadi's wife, had a suspicion that Ruchika would naturally be partial to his wife. She thought that the charu meant for Satyavati would be better than the one meant for herself. She wanted her own son to be superior to her grandson. So she told Satyavati that no harm would come to them if they exchanged the pots, since both were meant to grant them children. Satyavati was very sweet by nature and she said, "So be it." And before Ruchika came back from his bath, they had drunk the water. Satyavati later told him about the suggestion of her mother about the exchange of the pots. He was very angry with the women for their foolishness. "Why did you both do it without asking me?" he said. "Since you both wanted sons, I prepared the water for your mother so that her son will have the qualities of a Kshatriya, and the pot I prepared for you was to give you a son who has the qualities of a Brahmin. All that is exchanged now. Your brother will be a saintly person while your son will have the nature of a Kshatriya." Satyavati was greatly upset and fell at his feet, asking him to somehow modify the situation. Ruchika said, "I can only do one thing. I can shift it by a generation. Your son will be sweet-tempered and your grandson will be the one to inherit the nature of a Kshatriya." Satyavati gave birth to a son, Jamadagni. He was saintliness personified. He was gentle and affectionate like his mother. When Satyavati died, she was transformed into a river by name Kaushiki, and it was reputed to purify the world. Jamadagni, the Bhargava, married Renuka and 5 sons were born to them. They were Vasuman, Vasu, Vasushena, Rumanvan, and Rama. It was this Rama who had been born with the qualities of a Kshatriya. He became known the world over as a hater of Kshatriyas later on. He was said to be the avatara of the Lord, born to rid the world of sinful kings like the Heyas. Rama was the personification of the gunas, rajas and tamas. It was well known that the smallest insult was felt to be enormous by Rama, and he would not rest until he had punished the offender. He was a Kshatriya by nature, but since he was a Brahmin by birth, he was bent upon punishing the Kshatriyas who did not respect the Brahmins. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamast. Chapter 116 of Shrimadbhagavatam, Kartavirya, the Heya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The king of the country by name Heya was Kartavirya Arjuna. He had propitiated Dattatreya, an Amsha of Narayana. He had 1,000 arms and he was invincible. He was powerful and he was famed the world over for his strength and glory. He became arrogant because of his extreme power over others. Once he was bathing in the river Narmada with his women. He held back the water with his 1,000 arms and it was arrested in its flow. Ravana, who had camped on the other side of the river, found his tent wetted by the river, and he found the cause of it. He could not brook the action of the Lord of the Hehayas. He went to him and tried to insult him, but Kartavirya made him the laughing stock of the women by capturing him. He kept Ravana as a prisoner in the city of Mahishmati and released him after insulting him. Once, Kartavirya was hunting in the forest, and during his wandering, he came by chance to the ashrama of Jamadagni. The rishi entertained the king and his entire host with the help of Kamadhenu, the divine cow. Kartavirya was greatly impressed by the powers of Kamadhenu. So much so, he became jealous of Jamadagni. When he had left the ashrama with his attendants, he instructed his men to steal the cow and bring it to his city. His orders were obeyed, and the cow, crying piteously, was carried by force to Mahishmati, the capital of Heheya. Rama, who had gone out, came back to the ashrama of his father and heard about the stealing of Kamadhenu. He was hissing like a serpent which had been beaten by a stick. He took up his terrible axe, his bow and quiver full of arrows, and hurried to the city of the miscreant. Kartavirya was nearing the city of Mahishmati when he saw Rama pursuing him. He had not seen Rama before. Rama was a glowing figure dressed in deer skin like a Brahmin. But there the resemblances ended. This Brahmin had a bow and arrows, and on his shoulder was placed an immense axe. He was glowing like the sun at the time of the deluge. Kartavirya realized that this man had come to fight with him, and he dispatched an army consisting of 17 Akshohinis. Single-handed, Rama destroyed the entire army. Seeing his army destroyed like that, Arjuna entered the field of battle. He had 500 bows in his 500 hands, and the other 500 hands were busy sending arrows at Rama. But Rama broke all the bows, and when Arjuna tried to fight by hurling stones and trees at Rama, his arms were cut away by Rama. A moment later, Rama cut off the head of Kartavirya. Arjuna's 10,000 sons were stunned by the death of their father and ran away from the spot in terror. Rama then took Kamadhenu and her calf with him and went back to the ashrama. Jamadagni listened to the narration of the fight and about the death of Kartavirya. He was silent for a moment and then said, Rama, my son, killing a king is a sin and you have incurred it. Your anger is your weakness. You should learn to be patient. We Brahmins were respected by others because of this quality in us. The glow of a Brahmin is because of his patience, and it is this quality which makes us dear to the Lord. Kartavirya was an anointed king, and he had been killed by you. The sin is greater than the killing of a Brahmin. You can be cleansed of this sin only by visiting the sacred rivers. Spend a year in all the tirthas, and then come back to me. So be it, said a strangely chastened Rama, and he went on a pilgrimage to the holy waters. 1 year passed and Rama came back from his pilgrimage. He was welcomed with great affection by his father and mother. Once, Renuka, the wife of Jamadagni, went to the banks of the river to bring water as was her daily custom. There, she saw the Gandharva by name Chitrasena, and he was playing in the water with his Apsara concerts. She was looking on and told herself, what a handsome man he is. And she stayed on the river banks longer than usual. When she went back to the ashrama, it was past the time for Homa. She entered with great hesitation, afraid that her husband would be angry with her for her delay. She placed the pot of water at his feet and stood with folded palms. The rishi saw with his mind's eye the cause of her delay. He was incensed at her sin, though it was committed mentally for a few moments. The thought that a man other than her lord was handsome was a sin. He called out to his sons and said, this woman has sinned. Kill her at once. The sons were hesitant. They could not make up their minds to kill their mothers at their father's angry command. Jamadagni then called his youngest son Rama and said, Rama, kill your mother and your brothers. It is my command. Rama did not hesitate even for a moment. He killed them all, and his father was pleased with him. He said, My son, I am so pleased with the promptness with which you obeyed me. Ask any boon of me, I will grant it to you. Rama fell at his feet and said, Father, all I want, if they should all come back to life. Moreover, when they wake up, they should not remember what has happened. His father's anger against his wife and children had evaporated, and he was only too happy to grant the boon to his son. They got up as though after a deep sleep, and they did not know what had happened. Kartavirya's sons, in the meantime, were nursing their anger against Rama for the killing of their father. Once, when Rama had gone to the forest with his brothers, the sons of Kartavirya came to the ashrama of Jamadagni. Finding the old couple alone, they thought that the time was opportune. The rishi was seated in front of the fire, and Renuka was attending on him. The sons of the king of Mahishmati rushed towards the rishi with their swords raised. She knew what they were planning to do. She implored them not to kill her husband, but they would not listen. They cut off the head of the rishi who was meditating on the Lord. The moment they had achieved their object, they ran away from the spot. Renuka shouted out, Rama, Rama, and hearing her voice at a distance, Rama heard the pain and agony in her voice, and he rushed to the ashrama to see what had happened. He had once one look at his dead father. Leaving everything in the hands of his brothers, Rama lifted his terrible axe, slung it on his shoulder, and ran out of the ashrama. In that one moment, Rama decided to destroy the entire Kshatriya clan. He went with the speed of lightning to the city by name Mahishmati. It was child's play for him to kill the sons of Kartavirya. They could do nothing in the presence of this avenging fury. He cut off their heads and made a small mountain of the heads heaped together. The city was devastated, and the river of blood ran in the literal sense. Rama's anger had not abated. He traveled the world over, and his one aim was to destroy the lusty Kshatriya whose blood was to be shed. All the Kshatriyas had to be killed. He went round the world 21 times, and with the blood of the dead sins, he filled up 5 lakes, which went by the name Samanta Panchaka. He performed the funeral rites to his father on the spot Samanta Panchaka. Only Rama used blood instead of water for the funeral oblations to his father. He then performed yagnas to purify himself of the sins of killing so many kings. It is said that this Rama is an avatara of the Lord, meant to rid the world of the burden of sinful men like the Heyas. It is also said that Rama will be one of the 7 rishis in the next Manvantara. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.